Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. It is Canadian Thanksgiving this weekend, so I am making some of my favorite foods for sort of pared down COVID reality Thanksgiving dinner for Julie and myself. And one of those dishes has to be this wild rice, broccoli and cheese casserole that I remember from my childhood that was always on the table and was usually made with a box of Uncle Ben's white and wild rice mixed with cheddar cheese and broccoli and then baked in the oven. Now, somewhere along the way, the packaging changed for Uncle Ben's, the formula changed from Uncle Ben's, I changed, the family changed, and it sort of fell out of favor for a little while. And when I went back to try to make it again, I realized I couldn't use the Uncle Ben's anymore. I needed to find another way. So this is what I came up with. In this bowl, I have wild rice. Now, this type of rice is native to the Great Lakes region and has been used by indigenous peoples that lived here since the dawn of time. They have been harvesting it from the lakes that grows wild. And when I was a little kid, my grandparents owned an island in a lake called Rice Lake in the Kawarthas, not too far from here. And this still grew wild in the shallower, marshy parts. And when I was very young, people still harvested it in canoes. By the time I got to high school, it had almost disappeared from the lake. The way the lake was being used was completely different. The habitat was destroyed, and it pretty much disappeared. Although in the last 5 to 10 years, it's making a comeback. And people are harvesting it here again. I'll link to a couple of YouTube videos, if I can find them, of people harvesting this style of rice. It's absolutely fantastic. It is so nutty and flavorful. So I'm going to put the wild rice into this pan. To that, I'm going to add some chicken stock. And I've got this over medium-high heat. I want to bring this up to a simmer. Now, to this pot, I'm going to add turmeric, ground ginger, dried garlic, dried onion powder, ground cumin. This one is tarragon, parsley flakes, and a little bit of oregano. Okay, give this a stir to combine it all. And like I said, I want to bring this up to a boil. And once this comes up to a boil, I'm going to put a lid on it, turn it right down, and let it cook for 45 minutes to an hour. Yes, it takes that long. It is a completely different type of grain than the rice you're used to. I am positive Uncle Roger has never cooked this style of rice. So I'll come back to this in about an hour. Okay, the rice is almost done, so I'm going to chop up the broccoli and some mushrooms. And I like mushrooms in mine. There was a time when mushroom soup ended up in this dish at our house, along with Cheez Whiz. Not a fan of Cheez Whiz anymore. So I'll chop these up, and just a rough chop. They don't need to be too fine. I kind of like the chunks. Next, it is the broccoli, and I use the stem and everything, and I just cut it into small enough bite-sized pieces that nobody at the table is going to have to cut it open. Okay, now that this is all chopped up, I've got a steamer going, and I'm going to par steam the broccoli. So we'll get all of that in there. Okay, while that's steaming, I'm going to get a roux going in this pan over here for the cheese sauce. And so a roux is just equal parts melted butter. So I'll get that butter melting first. Now the butter's melted, I'm going to whisk in the same amount of flour. And you can build a lot of flavor when you're doing this by how deeply you brown the butter or the flour while you're cooking it here. Now that I've got this together, I want to pour in about a cup of milk, a little bit at a time. Whisk it into the flour. And if my milk was warm, it wouldn't break like it does, but Just means I have to whisk harder. Okay, the roux has come together really nicely. The next thing to do is grate some cheese, and I'm using cheddar, and cheese is to taste. I'm going to use probably 300 grams of cheddar, but you can make this as cheesy as you want, as decadently cheesy as you want. Just going to mix in about a third of the cheese to start with, and melt that into the roux to start our sauce going. And if you see it's a little too thick, you can add a little bit more milk, or you could add some chicken stock if you have any left over from making the rice. And this would be a good place to put some pepper in the cheese sauce. Now, the broccoli is cooked. It's probably overcooked because I've taken too long doing other things. I want to get it in here without burning my fingers too bad. Oh, it's not going to be so bad. Okay. Into the cheese sauce and a couple of strays. And we'll stir that together, get everything coated. I'm also going to add the mushrooms now. Stir everything together. This is also the point where you put in the wild rice. So get that in there as well, and stir it all together. Okay, I think everything's mixed together nicely. So, sprinkle on the last of the cheese. So at this point, you could have done this all ahead of time. You could do this the day before your dinner, stick it in the fridge, and then the day of the dinner, you just want to warm this up and brown the cheese. I've got the oven preheated to 400 because I'm ready to go. So I'm going to put this in, I'm going to toast it all together and get that cheese on top nice and bubbly. Hey, Jules.
Hey, Glenn. Hey, friends.
So, Thanksgiving dinner.
Just you and I, huh? And friends.
And friends.
Thanks for being here.
It is a little bit small this year. So we're going to start out with, we're going to try the broccoli casserole.
All right, broccoli.
So, I don't know that it can beat the boxed version.
I think it can, but I've got to ask. You're making me start my vegetables first. Yeah, I see a pie right there.
What about the tomato aspic? We'll get to those. We'll get to those. We'll get to those.
Always a favorite, though.
Yeah.
You know, first of all, you add cheese, and it's
Cheese
special.
and it all. And it is special, and there's something about that nutty flavor from the wild rice.
The wild rice, yeah.
Yeah, and it's something that should be celebrated. It's something that we should definitely be thankful for.
And it's so good.
It is so good. It tastes so good. So come on back for the rest of our little mini Thanksgiving feast for the date custard pie, the reverse sear roast,
And the aspic.
and the tomato aspic. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.